So, let me set the scene for you. I am Jason, 35, married to Lisa, 32, for about 8 years now. We've had a pretty good run, at least that's what I thought. Lisa, as a high school teacher, adored by her students and respected by her colleagues. I am an accountant, working the 9 to 5 grind. We've got a comfortable life, no kids, but a lot of love for each other, or so I believed. Last Thursday, I decided to surprise Lisa at her school. She often stays late for grading papers or meeting with students, and I thought it to be sweet to take her out for a spontaneous dinner. I showed up around 4 p.m., right when the final bell rang. The school was buzzing with students, but when I asked a couple of them where Lisa was, they exchanged nervous glances. That was the first red flag. I pushed a bit further, and they finally said, "Yes, in the library, Mr. J," with these weird, knowing smiles. Something felt off, but I tried to shrug it off. I headed to the library, expecting to find her buried in books and paperwork, but guess what? No Lisa. I searched the aisles, checked her usual corner. Nothing. My heart started pounding. I mean, where could she be? I decided to check her classroom. On my way there, I bumped into one of her colleagues, Mrs. Thompson. She looked at me, surprised, and asked what I was doing there. When I told her I was looking for Lisa, she seemed uneasy but pointed towards the gym. I reached the gym, and there she was. Not alone, though. Lisa was with Mr. Carter, the gym teacher. They were standing too close, talking in hushed tones, and I swear I saw her hand brush against his arm. They both looked startled when they saw me. Lisa quickly composed herself and greeted me with a forced smile. "Oh, Jason, what a surprise! What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice a bit too high-pitched. "I thought we could go out for dinner," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She glanced at Mr. Carter, then back at me. "That sounds great. I just need a few more minutes here." Mr. Carter gave me a curt nod and walked away, his eyes lingering on Lisa for just a second too long. I watched him leave, feeling a pit in my stomach. On our drive home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Lisa was unusually chatty, filling the silence with stories about her students and how stressful the school year had been. I played along, but my mind was racing. Why had her students been so weird? And what was she really doing in the gym with Mr. Carter? Later that night, I decided to do a little digging. Lisa had been secretive with her phone lately, always keeping it face down and taking it with her everywhere. While she was in the shower, I took a peek. Her messages with Mr. Carter were mostly school-related, but something felt off. There were gaps in the conversation, messages deleted, perhaps. I didn't have concrete evidence yet, but my gut was telling me something was very, very wrong. This wasn't just paranoia, this was intuition. I needed to find out the truth, and I needed to do it fast. So, that's where it all started. My once perfect world began to crumble. One suspicious look, one nervous smile, one deleted message at a time, and I was determined to uncover every single lie Lisa had been feeding me. After that unsettling day at Lisa S. school, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. Her behavior, the students' reactions, and Mr. Carter S.'s presence were all nagging at me. I needed to dig deeper, but I had to be careful not to arouse her suspicion. The next day I decided to leave work early again. This time I headed home, hoping to catch Lisa before she got back. I rummaged through her desk, looking for anything that could explain her recent behavior. Nothing. Just lesson plans and old student assignments. Then, I noticed her laptop. Lisa always kept it password protected, but after 8 years of marriage, I knew all her passwords. I booted up the laptop and went straight to her emails. Most were boring work-related stuff, but then I saw an email thread with Mr. Carter. My heart pounded as I opened it. At first glance, it seemed professional, but as I scrolled down, the tone changed. They were talking about meeting up outside of school hours. The last email from Mr. Carter read, "Can't wait to see you tonight? Same place?" Lisa had responded with a simple, "Yes, looking forward to it." I felt a cold wave of anger and betrayal wash over me. Where was this same place? I needed more proof. I clicked on her calendar and there it was, an entry titled, "Meeting for that evening." No details, just meeting. That evening I followed her. She left the house around 7 p.m., dressed up more than usual for a typical meeting. She drove to a small, discreet hotel on the outskirts of town. I parked a safe distance away and watched as she met Mr. Carter in the parking lot. They kissed briefly before heading inside. I couldn't believe my eyes. I felt a mix of rage and devastation. Part of me wanted to storm in there and confront them, but I knew I needed to stay calm and gather more evidence. I snapped a few photos with my phone, feeling like a private investigator in some twisted movie. Back home, I waited for Lisa to return, my mind racing with what I'd seen. When she finally walked in around 10 p.m., she was glowing, her cheeks flushed. She acted as if everything was normal, chatting about her meeting and how productive it was. I played along, my stomach churning with each lie she told. "Sounds like it was a good meeting," I said, forcing a smile. "It was. We got a lot done," she replied, not meeting my eyes. The next few days were torture. I couldn't look at her without seeing her with Mr. Carter. I started distancing myself, both emotionally and physically. Lisa noticed, of course, but I brushed it off as work stress. I needed more time to think, to plan my next move. One evening, while Lisa was out grading papers again, I decided to visit Mr. Carter's house. I found his address through some online snooping social media. His house was in a quiet neighborhood, and I parked a block away to avoid being seen. I watched from a distance, hoping to catch a glimpse of any suspicious activity. About an hour later, I saw a car pull up. It wasn't Lisa S., but a woman S figure stepped out. She had long, dark hair and a confident stride. She knocked on Mr. Carter's door, and he greeted her with a kiss, pulling her inside. So, he had other women too. This guy was a real piece of work. The next day, I contacted a private investigator. If I was going to confront Lisa and Mr. Carter, I needed solid evidence. The PI assured me they'd get to the bottom of it, and I felt a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. For now, I had to keep up the facade of a loving husband, pretending everything was fine while my heart shattered with each passing day. Lisa's lies were piling up, and I was determined to expose them all. The days crawled by as I waited for the private investigator's report. I maintained my act, playing the loving husband while secretly seething inside. Lisa's behavior didn't change. She continued her late-night grading sessions and suspicious meetings. I knew she was lying, but I needed that undeniable proof. A week later, the PI called me in for a meeting. My hands were shaking as I drove to his office, a mix of dread and anticipation churning in my gut. When I arrived, he greeted me with a grim look and handed me a thick folder. "Mr. Johnson, you were right to suspect your wife," he said, his voice serious. "We have gathered substantial evidence of her infidelity." I opened the folder and saw photos of Lisa with Mr. Carter at various locations, restaurants, hotels, even at his house. There were detailed reports of their meetings, with timestamps and descriptions of their activities. My stomach turned as I read through the sordid details. "She's been seeing Mr. Carter for at least 3 months, the PI continued. "We've also found evidence of her meeting another man, likely one of her students' parents. She's been very discreet, but we managed to track her movements." I felt sick. Not only was she cheating with Mr. Carter, but there was another man involved too? This was worse than I'd imagined. My mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? Why was she doing this? Did she ever love me at all? I thanked the PI and paid him, then drove home in a daze. I had all the evidence I needed, but I still didn't know how to confront Lisa. Should I explode in rage, demand answers, or quietly plan my exit? Every option felt inadequate. That evening, I decided to confront her. I couldn't keep this charade up any longer. When Lisa walked in, I was waiting for her at the kitchen table, the folder of evidence in front of me. She greeted me with a kiss, but I pulled away, unable to hide my disgust. "Jason, what's wrong?" she asked, her brow furrowing in concern. "We need to talk," I said, my voice shaking. "Sit down." She sat, her eyes darting nervously to the folder. "What is this?" I took a deep breath. "It is proof of your affairs, Lisa. With Mr. Carter and God knows who else, I know everything." Her face went pale. She reached for the folder, but I slammed my hand down on it. "No more lies, Lisa. I've seen the photos, read the reports. Just tell me why." Tears welled up in her eyes, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I married. Jason, I didn't mean for this to happen. It started with Mr. Carter. We got close, and I was lonely. You were always busy with work, and I felt neglected. Neglected? I scoffed. So you decided to cheat on me instead of talking about it? She wiped her tears, her expression turning defiant. It wasn't just about feeling neglected. I felt alive with him, like I mattered. And yes, I know it's wrong, but I couldn't stop. And the other man. It just happened. I was weak. Weak? I repeated, my voice rising. You've destroyed our marriage, Lisa. You've lied to me, betrayed me, and now you are calling it weakness? She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. I'm sorry, Jason. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you, but I don't know how to fix this. I stood up, unable to look at her. You don't get to fix this, Lisa. You made your choices. Now you have to live with the consequences. I walked out of the room, leaving her crying at the table. My mind was made up. This marriage was over. I couldn't stay with someone who had betrayed me so deeply. That night, I packed a bag and checked into a hotel. I needed space to think, to plan my next steps. The betrayal cut deep, but I knew I had to be strong. For now, I needed to focus on my future, without Lisa. I woke up the next morning in the hotel, the weight of the previous night's confrontation still heavy on my mind. The room felt cold and unfamiliar, a stark contrast to the warmth of the home Lisa and I had shared for years. But there was no turning back now. I had made my decision. First things first, I needed a lawyer. If this was going to end, it had to be done right. I spent the morning researching and found a reputable divorce attorney. By noon, I had an appointment scheduled for the next day. Back at the hotel, I tried to distract myself with TV, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Lisa. Despite everything, part of me still loved her. 8 years of memories just vanish overnight. But every time I thought of her with Mr. Carter or that other man, any lingering affection was overshadowed by anger and betrayal. I decided to call my best friend Mark. He'd been my rock through thick and thin, and I needed his support now more than ever. Hey, man, I said when he answered. You got time to talk? Always, Jason. What's up? Mark's voice was comforting, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this. I filled him in on everything, the PIS findings, the confrontation, my decision to file for divorce. Mark listened without interrupting, his occasional murmurs of disbelief the only sign of his shock. Jason, I am so sorry you are going through this, he finally said. You don't deserve any of it. But I am here for you, whatever you need. Thanks, Mark. I don't even know what I need right now. Just needed to tell someone. We talked for a while longer about anything and everything but Lisa. It felt good to focus on something else, even if just for a little while. By the time we hung up, I felt a bit more grounded. The next day, I met with the lawyer, Susan. She was a no-nonsense woman in her 40s, with a reputation for being tough but fair. I laid out my situation, showing her the evidence I had gathered. This is more than enough to proceed with a divorce on grounds of adultery, she said, flipping through the photos and reports. Given the circumstances, you have a strong case. We can push for a favorable settlement. Thank you, I said, feeling a glimmer of hope. I just want this over with. Susan nodded. We'll get started right away. Do you have a place to stay? I am at a hotel for now, but I'll look for something more permanent. I can go back home. Understandable. We'll also discuss financials and any shared assets. It's important to get everything in order. As I left her office, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. This was the beginning of the end, but at least I was taking control of my life again. Over the next few days, I found a small apartment to rent. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Moving my things out of the house was painful, each item a reminder of the life Lisa and I had built together. She wasn't home when I went to collect my belongings, which was a small mercy. I wasn't ready to face her again. A week later, the divorce papers were served. Lisa called me, her voice shaky. Jason, please, can we talk? There's nothing left to say, Lisa. You made your choices, but I love you. Can't we at least try to fix this? I sighed, the weariness of the past few weeks catching up with me. Love isn't supposed to hurt this much, Lisa. You broke us. I can forgive that. The line went silent, and then she hung up. I stared at the phone, a mixture of sorrow and resolve settling over me. This was the right path, no matter how painful. As the weeks passed, I threw myself into work and rebuilding my life. Mark and I hung out more, his presence a constant reminder that I wasn't alone. I even joined a gym, trying to channel my anger and frustration into something positive. One evening, as I was heading out for a run, I got a call from an unknown number. Hesitant, I answered. "Hello? Jason? It is Mrs. Thompson from Lisa S. School." Surprised, I replied, "Oh, hi. What can I do for you? I heard about what happened. I just wanted to let you know you are not alone. If you ever need to talk, I am here." I thanked her, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in weeks. Maybe, just maybe, there were still good people in this world. The journey ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: I was moving forward, one step at a time, and I was determined to come out stronger on the other side. It had been a couple of months since the papers were served. Lisa tried reaching out a few times, but I kept my distance. I wasn't ready to talk, and I needed to focus on healing. The divorce proceedings were moving along thanks to Susan S.'s efficiency. I was settling into my new apartment, and despite the circumstances, it felt good to have a space that was entirely my own. I threw myself into work, finding solace in the routine and distraction it provided. Mark continued to be my rock, and I even reconnected with some old friends, which helped me rebuild a support system. One afternoon, as I was organizing some old boxes, I found a photo album from our early days of marriage. Flipping through the pages, I felt a pang of nostalgia. We looked so happy, so in love. It was hard to reconcile those memories with the reality of our situation, but I knew I couldn't dwell on the past. My thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. I opened it to find Mrs. Thompson standing there, looking a bit nervous. "Mrs. Thompson, hi," I said, surprised. "Hi, Jason. I hope you don't mind me dropping by. I was in the area and thought I'd check on you," she said, offering a tentative smile. "Of course, come in," I replied, stepping aside to let her in. We sat down in the living room, and she looked around, taking in the sparsely furnished space. "How are you holding up?" she asked gently. I shrugged. "It's been tough, but I am managing. How about you? How is school?" "It's been interesting. Everyone knows about Lisa and Mr. Carter now." "It's caused quite a stir," she said, shaking her head. "But I didn't come here to talk about that. I wanted to see how you were doing. You were always so supportive of Lisa and the school." Her words touched me. "Thanks, Mrs. Thompson. It means a lot. I am getting by, taking things one day at a time." She smiled, a bit more warmly this time. "If you ever need to talk or just want some company, don't hesitate to reach out. You don't have to go through this alone." As she left, I felt a sense of gratitude. It was nice to know that there were still people who cared. Over the next few weeks, I took her up on her offer. We met for coffee a few times, and her company was a welcome distraction from the chaos of my personal life. One evening, after a particularly rough day, I found myself dialing her number. "Hey, Mrs. Thompson, are you free to talk?" "Of course, Jason. What's on your mind?" We talked for hours, about everything and nothing. It was comforting to have someone to confide in, someone who wasn't directly involved in the mess my life had become. Our conversations became a regular thing, and I started to feel a sense of normalcy returning to my life. One day, while we were out for a walk, she mentioned something that took me by surprise. "You know, Jason, I always admired your dedication to Lisa. You deserved better." Her words struck a chord, and for the first time, I allowed myself to consider the possibility of moving on. Maybe there was hope for a new beginning, a chance to rebuild my life on my own terms. As the divorce proceedings neared their conclusion, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. It was the end of an era, but also the start of something new. I had learned a lot about myself in the process, and I was determined to come out stronger. One evening, as I was sorting through some old files, I came across a letter from Lisa. It was dated a few weeks after I had moved out. Curious, I opened it and began to read. "Jason, I know you probably hate me right now, and I don't blame you. I hate myself too. I can't explain why I did what I did, but I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. I made terrible mistakes, and I'm paying the price for them now. I just hope that someday you can find it in your heart to forgive me. I'm truly sorry for everything. I wish you all the happiness in the world, even if it ends without me. Lisa. I stared at the letter, my emotions swirling. I didn't know if I could ever forgive her, but reading her words I realized that holding on to anger wasn't helping me either. Maybe, in time, I could find a way to let go. For now, I was focused on the future, a future where I could rebuild my life, stronger and wiser. With the support of friends like Mark and Mrs. Thompson, I knew I'd be okay. Just when I thought I had a grip on my new reality, life threw another curveball. The day after reading Lisa S. letter, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Mr. Carter, Jason, at S. Mark Carter. "We need to talk," he said, his voice sounding surprisingly tense. I hesitated. The last thing I wanted was a conversation with the man who helped destroy my marriage. But curiosity got the better of me. All right. Where and when? We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a small cafe downtown. As I walked in, I spotted him immediately. He looked just as uncomfortable as I felt. "Thanks for coming," he began, shifting nervously in his seat. "I know this is awkward, but there's something you need to know." I sat down, arms crossed. What could you possibly have to say that would change anything? He took a deep breath. "It is about Lisa, and the other guy she was seeing." I felt a jolt of anger and confusion. "You mean there's more? What about him?" Mr. Carter looked down, unable to meet my eyes. I didn't realize how deep it went until recently. Lisa has been seeing him for almost a year. He's not just a random fling. She's been planning to leave you for him. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my composure. Who is he? A parent of one of her students. His name S. David. I found out because she slipped up and left her phone unlocked. I saw messages, plans, everything. She was using me as a cover for her other affair. My head was spinning. This was a betrayal on a whole new level. Why are you telling me this? Because I realized I've been used and manipulated too. I thought she cared about me, but I was just a pawn in her game. I'm sorry, Jason, truly. I had no idea she was capable of this. I sat back, trying to process this new information. Lisa S. betrayal was deeper than I'd imagined. It wasn't just about infidelity, it was about deceit and manipulation on a grand scale. "Why should I believe you?" I asked, my voice cold. He handed me his phone. "Read the messages yourself." I scrolled through the texts between Lisa and David, my stomach turning with each one. It was all their plans to be together, talks about leaving their spouses, and detailed accounts of their meetings. It was clear Lisa had been playing all of us. I handed the phone back, feeling a hollow ache in my chest. "What do you want from me, Mark?" "Nothing. I just thought you deserved to know the truth. I am ending things with Lisa, and I am leaving the school. I can stay there knowing what she's done." I nodded, numb. "Thanks for telling me. I appreciate it." As I walked out of the cafe, I felt a strange sense of relief. The truth, no matter how painful, was out in the open. There were no more secrets, no more lies. I could finally start to heal. Back at my apartment, I called Susan, my lawyer, and updated her on the situation. She was shocked, but assured me that this new information would strengthen my case. The next day, I received a call from Mrs. Thompson. "Jason, I heard some disturbing news. Is it true that Lisa was involved with a parent too?" Yes, true," I sighed. "I found out yesterday. She's been seeing a man named David for almost a year." There was a pause. "I'm so sorry, Jason. I can imagine how you're feeling right now. If you need anything, just let me know." "Thanks, Mrs. Thompson. I appreciate it." Hanging up, I felt a surge of determination. This was it. I was done with Lisa S. lies and deceit. It was time to close this chapter of my life for good. I threw myself into the final stages of the divorce process, working closely with Susan to ensure everything was in order. Lisa S.'s attempts to contact me became more desperate, but I ignored her. I was done playing her games. One evening, as I was packing away the last of our shared belongings, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Lisa standing there, looking disheveled and teary-eyed. "Jason, please, I need to talk to you," she pleaded. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "What do you want, Lisa? I am sorry for everything. I made terrible mistakes, and I hurt you in ways I can't even begin to understand. But I love you, and I want to make things right." I shook my head, feeling a strange sense of calm. "It's too late for that. You didn't just make a mistake, Lisa. You systematically lied and betrayed me. Our marriage is over." She started crying, but I felt no sympathy. "I hope you find what you're looking for with David. Goodbye, Lisa." I walked back inside and closed the door, leaving her standing there. As I leaned against the door, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was over. I was free. Over the next few weeks, I focused on rebuilding my life. The divorce was finalized, and I felt a sense of closure. I started seeing a therapist, which helped me process the trauma and start to heal. Mrs. Thompson continued to be a great support. We started spending more time together, and a new connection began to blossom. It was slow, tentative, but it felt right. One evening, as we were walking in the park, she turned to me and said, "You know, Jason, I think you're going to be okay." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. "I think so too. Thanks for being here." As the sun set, I realized that despite the pain and betrayal, I had come out stronger. Life had thrown me some unexpected twists, but I was ready for whatever came next. Life was slowly starting to look up. The divorce was finalized, and Lisa was out of my life for good. I was finally finding my footing again. My therapist, Dr. Morgan, was a godsend, helping me navigate the emotional turmoil and find a new sense of balance. Mrs. Thompson, or Emily as I'd come to call her, became an even more significant part of my life. Our bond grew stronger with each passing day. Emily and I had dinner at her place one evening. It was a modest, cozy home filled with books and memories from her years of teaching. Over a delicious meal of homemade lasagna, we talked about everything from her students to my plans for the future. I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in months. "Jason, I have been thinking," Emily said, her eyes warm and thoughtful. "You have been through so much. Have you considered taking some time off, maybe a trip to clear your mind?" I hadn't thought about it, but the idea sounded appealing. "You know, that is not a bad idea. A change of scenery might do me some good." She smiled. "There's a cabin up in the mountains that I rent occasionally. It's quiet, peaceful, the perfect place to get away from everything. You should go." I agreed, and a week later I found myself driving up to the mountains. The cabin was perfect, secluded, surrounded by nature, with a breathtaking view of the valley below. I spent my days hiking, reading, and simply enjoying the tranquility. One afternoon, while sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Emily. "Hope you're enjoying the cabin. Miss you. Can't wait to hear all about it when you get back." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. I typed back a quick response and set the phone aside, savoring the moment. Life was starting to make sense again, but as they say, life is full of surprises. One morning, while exploring a trail near the cabin, I stumbled upon a familiar face. It was David, the man Lisa had been seeing. He looked just as surprised to see me. "Jason?" he asked, his expression a mix of shock and awkwardness. "David, what are you doing here?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I come up here to clear my head sometimes. Didn't expect to run into you." We stood there in awkward silence for a moment before he spoke again. "Listen, I know you have no reason to believe me, but I didn't know Lisa was married at first. By the time I found out, I was already in too deep. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to punch him, but another part of me just wanted to move on. Well, now you know, and now you get to deal with her." He nodded, looking genuinely remorseful. "I'm sorry for everything, Jason, really." I took a deep breath. It's in the past. I am moving forward. With that, we parted ways. The encounter left me shaken, but also more determined to leave the past behind. When I returned from the cabin, Emily was waiting for me. We spent the evening talking about my trip, and I told her about running into David. She listened, her eyes full of understanding. "You handled it well," she said, squeezing my hand. "You are stronger than you realize." As the weeks turned into months, Emily and I grew closer. We shared more about our lives, our hopes, and our dreams. I started to see a future with her, one filled with possibility and new beginnings. But life, as unpredictable as it is, had one more curveball to throw. One evening, as Emily and I were preparing dinner, my phone rang. It was Lisa. "Jason, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to talk to you. It's important." I hesitated, my heart racing. "What is it, Lisa?" "It's about David. He's not who he says he is. I found out some things you need to know." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What are you talking about? Can we meet?" "Just once. I promise it's important." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a small cafe, the same one where Mr. Carter had dropped his bombshell. Lisa looked different, tired, worn, but there was a fire in her eyes I hadn't seen before. "Jason, David has been lying to both of us. He's not just a parent. He's been involved in some shady business, and I think he's dangerous." I stared at her, struggling to process what she was saying. "Why should I believe you?" She sighed, looking genuinely distressed. "Because I found proof. Emails, documents he has been using me to get to you. There is more going on here than just an affair." My mind was reeling. "What do you mean, get to me?" She leaned in, lowering her voice. "I think he's after something you have. I don't know what, but he's been asking a lot of questions about your work, your clients." I felt a knot of fear tightening in my stomach. "This is crazy, Lisa, I know, but you need to be careful. Please, just look at the evidence." She handed me a folder, her hands shaking. I took it, my mind racing. "All right, I'll look at it." As I left the cafe, I felt a sense of dread settling over me. What had I gotten myself into? I had no choice but to investigate further. The peace I had found was slipping through my fingers, replaced by uncertainty and fear. Back at my apartment, I opened the folder Lisa had given me. Inside were printouts of emails, financial documents, and a few photographs. As I went through them, a chilling realization began to settle in. David wasn't just some random guy Lisa had an affair with. He was deeply involved in something much more sinister. The emails were the most damning. They detailed transactions and conversations between David and various shady characters, discussing money laundering and other illegal activities. There were mentions of me, of how they planned to use Lisa to get closer to me. My mind raced as I tried to connect the dots. Why me? What did I have that they wanted? The financial documents showed large sums of money being transferred between different accounts, with some transactions suspiciously linked to my firm. It was becoming clear that David had been using Lisa to gain access to my work and possibly my clients' information. I needed help, and I needed it fast. The first person I called was Mark. He answered on the second ring. "Jason, what's up?" "Mark, I need to talk to you. It's urgent. Can you come over?" "Of course. Be there in 15. When he arrived, I laid everything out for him. Mark's eyes widened as he went through the evidence. "This is serious, Jason. We need to go to the authorities." "I know," I said, feeling a mix of fear and determination. "But we need to be careful. If David finds out we are onto him, who knows what he'll do." We decided to consult a lawyer who specialized in criminal law. Susan referred us to a colleague, Robert, who agreed to meet with us the next day. Robert was a sharp, no-nonsense type who immediately grasped the gravity of the situation. "This is definitely a case for the authorities," he said, after reviewing the documents. "But we need to gather more evidence and make sure you re-protected. David seems dangerous and we can take any chances." Over the next few days, Robert helped us compile everything we had and contacted the FBI. The waiting was agonizing, but we knew we had to be patient. Meanwhile, Emily was a constant source of support. I told her everything, and she was as concerned as I was. "Jason, you need to be careful. This guy sounds dangerous, I know. But with Robert and the FBI involved, I am hoping we can resolve this quickly." A week later, I received a call from Agent Harris, the FBI investigator assigned to our case. "Mr. Johnson, we've reviewed the evidence you provided. It's clear that David is involved in criminal activities, and we're moving forward with an investigation. In the meantime, we need you to keep a low profile. Understood. Thank you, Agent Harris." That evening, as I was preparing dinner, there was a knock on the door. My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and saw Lisa standing there looking frantic. "Jason, please, let me in." It is important. I hesitated but finally opened the door. What is it, Lisa? She stepped inside, her eyes wide with fear. David knows. He found out we are onto him. I am scared, Jason. He threatened me. My blood ran cold. What? How did he find out? I don't know, but we need to do something. He's a dangerous Jason, more than we realized. I called Robert and explained the situation. He advised us to stay put while he contacted Agent Harris. Within an hour, Agent Harris and his team arrived at my apartment. They took our statements and assured us they would do everything possible to protect us. The next few days were a blur of meetings with the FBI, moving to a safe location, and trying to piece together how David had found out. Emily stayed by my side, her presence a comforting anchor in the storm of uncertainty. One evening, while we were in our safe house, Emily turned to me. Jason, I know this is a lot to take in, but we are going to get through this. You're not alone. I nodded, grateful for her support. Thank you, Emily. I don't know what I'd do without you. As the FBI investigation progressed, more details about David S. operations came to light. He was part of a larger network involved in various illegal activities, and they had been targeting my firm to launder money. The more we uncovered, the more dangerous it became. One night, as I lay awake, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. You think you're safe? Think again. This isn't tea over. I felt a chill run down my spine. I showed the message to Agent Harris the next morning. We'll trace this. But it is clear David isn't going to back down easily. Stay vigilant. The tension was unbearable, but we had no choice but to trust the process. Weeks turned into months, and slowly the FBI closed in on David and his associates. There were arrests, and the network began to unravel. Finally, one day, Agent Harris called with good news. Mr. Johnson, we've apprehended David and most of his associates. You are safe now. The relief was overwhelming. I thanked him profusely and hung up, turning to Emily with tears in my eyes. It's over. We are safe. She hugged me tightly. I knew we'd get through this. As we settled back into our normal lives, I realized how much I had changed. The ordeal had tested me in ways I never imagined, but it had also shown me the strength of the people around me, Mark, Emily, even Lisa, who had played a crucial role in exposing David. In the end, it wasn't just about surviving the betrayal. It was about finding the strength to move forward, to trust again, and to build a new life out of the ashes of the old one. With David and his network taken down, life began to stabilize. The storm had passed, and I could finally breathe again. I was grateful for the support from Emily, Mark, and even the unexpected help from Lisa. The whole ordeal had brought me closer to those who genuinely cared about me, and it had given me a new perspective on life. As weeks turned into months, Emily and I grew even closer. Our bond, forged through shared experiences and mutual support, had evolved into something deeper. We started spending more time together, enjoying the simple pleasures of life that I had almost forgotten in the chaos of the past year. One sunny Saturday morning, Emily and I decided to take a trip to the mountains. The same cabin that had provided me solace months ago now felt like the perfect place for a fresh start. We packed our bags and set off, the drive filled with laughter and light-hearted conversation. As we arrived at the cabin, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The air was crisp, the scenery breathtaking, and for the first time in a long while, I felt truly happy. Emily and I spent the days hiking, cooking together, and sitting by the fireplace, talking about our hopes and dreams. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emily turned to me with a thoughtful look. Jason, do you ever think about what's next? For us? I looked at her, feeling a warmth spread through me. I do. I think about it a lot. And I see a future with you, Emily. You've been my rock through all of this, and I can imagine my life without you. She smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. I feel the same way. These past months have shown me what is really important, and I want to build a life with you. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun dip below the horizon. It was a perfect moment, one that I knew I'd remember forever. Back in the city, life resumed its rhythm, but with a renewed sense of purpose. Emily and I decided to move in together, combining our lives in a way that felt natural and right. We found a cozy apartment with plenty of light and space, and soon it felt like home. One afternoon, while unpacking a box of old photographs, I came across a picture of Lisa and me from our early days of marriage. It was a bittersweet reminder of how much had changed. I decided to keep the photo, not as a painful memory, but as a testament to how far I'd come. Emily and I continued to support each other, and our relationship grew stronger every day. We started making plans for the future trips we wanted to take, projects we wanted to work on, and dreams we wanted to pursue together. One evening, as we were sitting on the couch, Emily turned to me with a serious expression. "Jason, there's something I've been wanting to ask you." "What is it?" I asked, curious. She took a deep breath. "Would you ever consider getting married again? To me?" Her question took me by surprise, but in the best way possible. I felt a surge of happiness and love. "Yes, Emily, I would. Nothing would make me happier." Her face lit up with joy, and we embraced, knowing that we were taking the next step in our journey together. The following months were filled with excitement and planning. We decided on a small, intimate wedding with just our closest friends and family. It was a beautiful day, filled with love and laughter. Mark was my best man, and seeing him stand by my side meant the world to me. As Emily and I exchanged vows, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the path that had led me to this moment. The trials and tribulations had been worth it, for they had brought me to a place of true happiness and fulfillment. After the wedding, we took a honeymoon trip to Europe, exploring new places and making memories that we would cherish forever. It was a magical time, a celebration of our love and the new life we were building together. Back home, life settled into a happy routine. I continued to work at the firm, now more vigilant and careful, while Emily found joy in her teaching. We supported each other's dreams and grew stronger as a couple with each passing day. One evening, as we were preparing dinner together, Emily turned to me with a thoughtful look. "Jason, I've been thinking, what do you think about starting a family?" Her question filled me with a mix of excitement and nervousness. "I did love that, Emily. I think we did make great parents." We talked long into the night, discussing our hopes and dreams for the future, and knowing that whatever came our way, we would face it together. As we moved forward, I realized that life is full of unexpected twists and turns. But with the right person by your side, you can navigate any challenge and come out stronger on the other side. A year had passed since Emily and I exchanged vows, and life was better than I had ever imagined. Our bond grew stronger each day, and we supported each other through every challenge and celebrated every triumph. The past was firmly behind us, and the future was filled with endless possibilities. One sunny morning, Emily and I decided to take a walk in the park. It was a perfect day, the sun was shining, birds were singing, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. We strolled hand in hand, enjoying the peace and tranquility. "Jason, I have some news," Emily said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "What is it?" I asked, sensing something big. She took a deep breath and smiled. "We are going to have a baby." I felt a rush of emotions, joy, excitement, and a touch of nervousness. "Emily, that's amazing. I can't believe it. We are going to be parents." We hugged tightly, feeling the weight of this incredible news. Our journey together had been filled with ups and downs, but this was a new chapter, one that promised so much happiness and love. As the months passed, we prepared for the arrival of our baby. We decorated the nursery, attended prenatal classes, and shared our hopes and dreams for our growing family. It was a time of anticipation and joy, and we cherished every moment. Emily's pregnancy brought us even closer. We spent countless evenings talking about our future, imagining what our child would be like, and making plans for the adventures we would share as a family. The bond between us deepened, and our love grew stronger with each passing day. One crisp autumn evening, Emily went into labor. We rushed to the hospital, our hearts pounding with excitement and a touch of nervousness. Hours later, our beautiful baby girl was born. Holding her in my arms for the first time, I felt a surge of love and wonder. She was perfect, and I knew our lives had changed forever. We named her Lily, a symbol of new beginnings and purity. Bringing her home was an emotional experience. We were a family, and our home was filled with love and joy. The sleepless nights and endless diaper changes were challenging, but every smile, every coo, and every tiny milestone made it all worthwhile. Mark and Emily's colleagues visited, showering us with love and support. Even Lisa, who had kept her distance after the divorce, sent a heartfelt message congratulating us and wishing us well. It was a gesture that brought a sense of closure and peace. As Lily grew, so did our happiness. Emily and I took her on walks in the park, read her bedtime stories, and sang her lullabies. We captured every precious moment, knowing that these early years were fleeting and magical. One evening, as we sat on the porch, watching Lily play in the yard, Emily turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Jason, do you ever think about how far we've come?" I nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude. All the time. We've been through so much, but we've built something beautiful out of it. I wouldn't change a thing. She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. Neither would I, and I can wait to see what the future holds for us. Life was good, better than I had ever dared to hope. We had faced the darkness and come out stronger, finding love, joy, and a sense of purpose. Our journey wasn't over, but it was a journey we faced together, with hope and love guiding us every step of the way. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over our home, I felt a profound sense of peace. The past was behind us, the future was bright, and the present was filled with love and laughter. It was a new chapter, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms. Stay tuned for future adventures. Our story continues, filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities.